Hi and welcome to RCKicks. On today's show, well, we're going to be restoring one of these, a Tamiya Terra Conqueror. Now this is quite an important car for Tamiya, and it was top of the range for its day. It had oil shocks, it came with bearings, it also came with a Dynatech motor. Like you'd ever see that these days. Can you imagine what this kit would cost if that was the case? Anyway, what we're going to do is strip it all down, we're going to clean it all up, we're going to rebuild it with some new parts. I've got a vintage body, vintage decals, yeah, a bit of a challenge to get hold of, but I've got some, and then we can restore it to a lovely shelf queen. I've even got some wheels thanks to the new Evo. Now that used to be a real challenge getting hold of these wheels before the Evo was re-read, but this is an important car because it led on from this to the Evolution, and this is very much part of the same family. So let's crack on and get it sorted. Hit it, Charlie. So I've got myself a cup of tea, I've got my ratchet Tamiya screwdriver, and we're pretty much ready to go. First thing we've got to do is strip it down, and for me it's really satisfying. For some reason I love stripping them down. It's very fast, very easy, and it's just something I enjoy for some weird reason. Now since I've been thinking about it, the actual rear tyres on this are actually pretty good. So I think what I might do is try and clean up the rear wheels and tyres and keep them, and then just change the front ones. The actual rims look in pretty good condition, so I think they're going to scrub up well. Right, let's crack on and dismantle it. Right, while I'm dismantling it, we can talk about some of the parts that I'm going to replace. Now, it's a, how can you say, it's a delicate situation. Now, I actually restored a boomerang, and I ended up putting pretty much everything was brand new apart from the actual center chassis. So I think I actually went a bit too far on that point. And there is this thing about how much you can replace before you end up with a new car. Now, I'm trying to make a shelf queen out of this as it's such a special car. So I'm going to try and go maybe a little bit further than I would if I was going to drive it, because I want to remove all the damage from underneath. So obviously the first thing is the chassis. Now another thing, getting this chassis took months. I originally bought this one straight away when I knew I was going to do this project, and then it was like 2 months later it still hadn't arrived, so I bought a second one off of eBay that had turned up. So I've actually got 2 of these, but definitely going to sort the chassis as it's got so much of it is shown. So chassis is definitely being changed. Now the uprights, both uprights are broken. This is one of those things where when you screw in the ball joint it blows them, so I've got 2 replacements for it. Obviously I've got to change them as they're broken. Now I have got quite a few other bits and pieces. The bumper. So now some of these trees are vintage and some of them are from newer releases. So I've got a bumper, and I've got an upright and the rear bumper bit, then a few other little bits and pieces. Now I don't necessarily need to use these versus the vintage ones, so as they're just not damaged, so I'll try and keep the ones that are not damaged. Like the battery tray holder doesn't really need to be replaced, but you know what I'm like, I end up liking spiffy new stuff, so I tend to lean towards it. I know. Then we're definitely going to replace the arms. Now the arms on these are in 2 parts. Quite a different way of doing it. So I've got a full set of arms, so that will get rid of all the damage on the arms. Also, what else have we got on here? We've got some steering parts and some turnbuckle ends, so I'll probably change those, as they did look a bit manky. So that's those. Rear uprights, and then we've got some steering parts. I don't think they're from this one, I'm not sure, but we're definitely going to use the rear uprights. And then I've got a front bulkhead that I'm going to use. The bottom section gets scuffed up, so we're going to use that. And the upright. Now the upright I've got, I'm not sure if it's got some cracks in it, I'll have to have a look. If it, maybe I'll just use this anyway. I know I shouldn't, but it stands up in the middle of the car at the front, so having a nice spiffy one. And that's pretty much everything that we're going to change. When I was dismantling it, I did look, the actual driveline of it didn't look like it done that much work. Yes, it was filthy dirty and covered in oil and grime, but the actual running gear, when I dismantled all the gears and stuff, they all look all right. So I'm quite chuffed about that. I don't think I'm going to go down to dismantle the diffs completely, as they're running smooth enough, so I think I'll just leave them alone. This is going to be a shelf queen, so it's never going to do mega miles anymore. So I've dug out my ultrasonic cleaner and I've split it into 3 groups. I've got all the hardware that is now soaking in some of this stuff. I'm not sponsored or anything, but Muck Off seems to work quite well. It's actually for bikes and mountain bikes and stuff like that, but it works quite well, and you can pick it up in any kind of local hardware shop like Halford's car shop, that kind of stuff. And then I've got the plastic parts that I'm not replacing, so they're soaking now. I'll fire up the ultrasonic cleaner, put in just some hot water with some washing up liquid, and then I'll transfer them in for about half an hour, and that will clean them up. Bearing wise, the bearings are actually in really good condition. There was only one that was a little bit iffy, so I'm going to have to replace that one, but everything else seems to be really good. So looking at the gears, it doesn't look like they've done that much work, so I'm quite happy with it. I did have some replacements, but I think I'll just give them a little bit of a once over and then we're ready to go. So let's clean up this manky horrible stuff and then we can start putting it back together again. So in a blink of an eye, everything is done, cleaned, polished, a WD-40 to make sure there's no water on any of the hardware so we get no rusting, and I'm happy to report nothing jumped out as a problem. The prop shaft was a little bit bent, but I managed to sort that out and get it as straight as I can. All the dog bones are fine, no issues there. So I didn't suffer from anything that was broken that I didn't know it was, or I didn't have the replacement part for it. So we got to kick off now, page 4, number 1. So we're just building it as if it was new. So let's crack on and see if we can get the chassis finished before the end of this video.
I'm running out of time, every day goes by so fast, and every moment counts, baby, I don't wanna miss a thing. We can sleep under the stars, we can sleep under the stars, or hang out in hotel bars, driving somewhere in your car. We can sleep under the stars, we can sleep under the stars, under the stars. Take my hand, and we don't need to do the things we don't want to do.
And I'm going to call the chassis finished. I have to say, probably the smoothest dismantle, clean restoration I've ever done. It was so smooth. I actually have done this all in one day up to this point. Long day, granted, but normally it takes a couple of days to go through everything. But I didn't have any problems. I wasn't missing any parts. There was nothing that was broken that I didn't know about. And it all went together beautifully. It's actually quite a nice build, very easy. The front and the rear gearbox is super easy, and obviously I didn't have to rebuild the ball diffs and stuff like that, and that can take a little bit longer. So I'm super happy to get to this stage, and the condition that I was aiming for, bang on. Now I've cleaned up the body a little bit. This is an original body, so it doesn't have protective film on it, and it was a little bit yellow, so I got some polycarbonate cleaner and I gave it a good clean, but I'm going to do it again. I've got to go around and sand all the edges, as it was cut out, but it was not cut out brilliantly. So, but the good news is I can fix that. I can actually do that. There's no real mistakes. It's just a bit rough around the edges. So I've got to do that. Then we'll paint it up. Then we'll get the decals on it, and then we'll bring it to life. So stay tuned. Please like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell notification. Otherwise you might miss the next installment in this build. See you on the next one. Bye bye.